Hello, YouTubes! Not a happy day in Jamie's garage. What is this little bolt? 52 miles on the new head gasket. Drove it on the city roads, county roads. Drove it on the highway, 75 miles an hour. No issue. 52 total miles since we replaced the head gasket and got it back on the road. And the day before I left for Tennessee, I see a drip on the driveway of coolant. Crawl my way under the car, look up at the pin light, and the water pump's got a little thing of fluid on it. And I'm wondering, where is that coming from? And then I noticed, staring down at me, this little shiny, brand new bolt and some threads looking at me on the back of the water pump, and on the back side of the water pump and in front of the engine block. Staring down at me, and I knew instantly what this bolt went to. It's on the back side of the water pump. There are two bolts on the back side of the water pump that hold the two sides of the clamshell together. I bought it as a unit. Bolt in, ready to go. 6 bolts on the front, good to go. These 2 bolts on the back, no Loctite. They apparently weren't torqued. They basically spun their way out, and luckily this one was just sitting there waiting for me to stick a magnet in from the top and pull it out. And then I was like, well, wonder what the other one's doing. On the other one, I can see it's backed out about 5 threads. So just the vibrations of the water pump and the engine and driving down the road, it's unscrewing and dripping coolant. So she's been sitting for 3 weeks since I fixed it. Drove 2 weeks I spent in Tennessee, Illinois, Kentucky on a big road trip for soccer matches with the MLS Next Cup. Got back, 3 days at home, getting recuperated, and then drove back to Kansas City, and I just got back yesterday. So I am back. She's coming back apart. Coolant's coming out. I think I'm going to change the oil filter, that 52 miles of new oil, just to get anything out of there that might be there, and that old oil filter was still in there. So I'm going to replace the oil filter, oil, coolant today, and we're going to Loctite these bad boys and put this bad Floki back on the road. Yep, there's the evidence. 3 weeks of a slow drippy out of the water pump. So yeah, red Toyota coolant. Alright YouTube, trying to light this up for you. See that little pink dried on glob right there? That's the red Toyota coolant or Asian coolant I have on the replacement. But you can see the clamshell right there. 2 halves of the water pump, and there's a gasket in the middle, but there are 2 bolts. One bolt is basically up right above where the tip of the light is, and the other one I'm not sure, I think was somewhere back here. But you can see where it just got wedged. I could just see it sitting back there, kind of dead center in the camera right now, just above where that pink bar is with the pink glob on it, just above it in your frame. And that's where I had a screw looking down at me, just kind of wedged in there, not falling through, and I fished it out with a magnet wand from the top. But there's no way I can tighten these up without taking off that entire water pump. So we are draining antifreeze today. That means everything else looks good. There's no oil leaks anywhere. Nothing going on back here. No leaks. I do have a little bit of a coolant leak up there on the radiator or the heater hose assembly. So I'm going to pull the battery out too and see if I can just tighten up one of those new hoses I made in Previa Mayhem 2. Hopefully I didn't damage the tubing. So I don't see any leaks down here. It's just kind of a little bit of a leak up there, and I just got to track it down, but I can't get back in there to see anything with the battery in place. So that's where we're at. I am going to, it's calling for me to remove, I thought I could get to the water pump without removing the oil housing, but it looks like I need to do it. 52 miles, everything's going to be fine. And we'll get new oil in here, new filter, because that's the old one that I rested the engine on, and just ran it for 52 miles just to see if there's anything that made its way through in the head gasket replacement, and we'll get all of it out. We'll call it good. Oh, passenger seat's got to come out too, because when I install this coolant again, I'm not going to put new coolant in. I'm going to put in the same one that's in there because it was new from the head gasket. I got to get on the top. There's a air release valve or bolt on the very top of the water jacket. So that means the passenger seat's coming out, so I can access that bolt when I fill up the new coolant and do that whole process over again. So fun stuff. Check your bolts on your water pump, people. Lessons provided here free of charge. I am learning as I go, though. I'm parked it in the garage this time with a little bit more space on the passenger side. Last time I was stuck with the door hitting about right there. This time, just made it by guessing. So yeah, got a little stay there. I got a little bit more space. That would have been nice when I was replacing the cylinder head and trying to get in there with all that. Passenger seats coming out. I have coolant draining on the front and oil draining in the back, so we'll do that while those are finishing their drain out. I must say I'm getting pretty adept at getting this passenger seat out. That was fast. And the best news is I don't see any signs of any leakage. No fuel leaks, no issues going up on top. This is the bolt I was speaking of right there. Where's my hand? There we are, right there. This is the water jacket coming off the top of the cylinder head, so this is an air bleed valve right there. So, yep, I need access to that when I refill it back up. Obviously, with the back wheels on the ground and it jacked up high in the front, this is the high side of the engine, and we can get air out right there. And the high side on the front is the overflow tank, so coolant overflow tank. So, yeah, it's easy to get the air out with that bleeder valve access. And yeah, we're gonna go back underneath, and oil sounds like it's done. I'll put the oil plug back in, pull the oil filter off, and then we gotta drop some coolant out of the drain plug on the bottom of the block. Making progress. All right, quick update. As you can see, the oil filter's out and the oil filter mount housing is out. There's my little figure 8 washer. Gonna have to reuse that one, as well as the 3 washers I think that come with the water pump. Gonna have to reuse those. But again, only had 52 miles. There. Let's see. This is my loose bolt. So on the back side, that one is loose. This is the one that's missing completely. So that's the one that fell out, and then it vibrated loose, fell out the backside, and went vertical down there, and I found it down here, sticking out below. So at this point, all the coolant's drained. I got the plug back in the radiator, the plug back in the engine block. I did open up the air release on the coolant jacket way up there on the top side, up where the light's coming through up there. The little air coming in makes it drain out a lot faster. Doesn't have to chug, but now I get to pull off these hoses. I've already loosened up this one. This one's loose. I just loosened up the one on the top. This one, that's loose. And I got the big one, and then I'm gonna get coolant all over my face and taste coolant the rest of the day. So I'm looking forward to this. Oh my God, YouTube, I just realized with the oil filter housing removed, see that golden screw that's in there? It's the one that was loosening up. And then the one goes right above it. With the oil filter housing out of the way, I can now get a 12 millimeter long handled wrench right up the back. I am not removing the entire water pump. It is torqued in on the 6 bolts. I'm not removing the hoses. I'm just going to pull out each one of those bolts, re-put them in with red Loctite, tighten them up with a long handled wrench, and we're going to call this good. This is looking better and better. Lots and lots of red Loctite. I hope I'm never back in here again for the remaining life of Floki at 297,000 miles. Alright, YouTube, quick update. Let's see if I can get a lay of the land there. There's one of the bolts. There's the other one. There's 2. See them? Oh, they're out of focus. Let's see. There they are, right in the center of your screen. So I was able to feed them in with some red thread locker on there. A lot of red thread locker. They are only 14 foot-pounds, so with a long-handled 12 millimeter wrench, I was able to reach up in there one at a time, and I just did them to the manual auto click. Nice and snug and tight. Never had to loosen up these other 6. Right now I'm going to clean up all this coolant leak that's been coming on right here, because this entire side where these 2 were at, right there, didn't have anything on it. That's why they're on the back side, because those 2 needed an extra clamp. So there's just a big gap between the 6 that mount from the front. So those are in place, tightened up, Loctited. So I'm going to clean this up, so if I see any new leaks, I know where they're coming from and I can track them down. So yeah, all my hoses are still intact. I never took anything off, so I'm just going to tighten back up these clamps because nothing was leaking back here. We're going to call it good. All right, she's full of oil. Time to put in the coolant. I got everything back together. All of my hose clamps, the regular screw types that I put in, not these OEM clamp ones, but the screw, like, you know, the little worm gear, all of them, the 2 that are going into the heater, what is it, the heater coil on the inside of the car, those 2 were like slightly loose. The one up the top on the heater valve, the selector valve, which is sitting right back here, it was slightly loose. And then the 2 that went down here onto the tube assembly, they were slightly loose. So tightened everything back up. It's super snug now. Hopefully that's just a acclimation from heating up on that first heat cycle. But we will get it back together and see if it runs with no leaks. It's alive, YouTube. She's alive. Running again. No drips. Coolant going through the cycle. In theory, once all that's in, it should be full.
but gotta go through the process of getting all the air out. So it's a complicated process. Gotta let it idle for 10 minutes and then put that cap on. So we'll see what happens here and let it go through a cool down cycle, and probably the rest of that will fill it up. But she's going. No sputter, no nothing.
All right, YouTube, it just hit me. I didn't need to drain any of the coolant. Although it was good to get it out, take a look at it, make sure it didn't have any oil in it, which it did not. Because now I got to go through this whole coolant reinstall, let it go through a heat cycle, fill it back up, make sure the air bubbles are out. On the last run, running it for 10 minutes, it did get hot air coming out of the heater, so I do know it filled the heater coil. I think I know why my hoses are collapsing again, because with it running, they're just as hot as they were when I heated them up with a hot air gun to form them with the coils in the first place. So they're just collapsing back to their natural state. So I might just get a used, wait for an SC unit to pop up at the junkyard and pull off the whole tube and heater hose assembly and just reinstall an old one that's in decent condition. I'll look into that. Maybe I'll contact Same, see what he's got. But yeah, I didn't need to drain the coolant because once I knew that I could get the bolts from the back, all I had to do was drain the oil to take out the oil filter housing. So once that oil filter housing's out of the way, I can reach those 2 bolts on the back of the water pump. They're tightened up. Everything's fine. Nothing's dripping. I looked underneath, cleaned everything up. Everything looks good. So yeah, I think it's going through a cool down cycle. I run it again. I'll probably keep that passenger seat out for a heat cycle or 2. And keep releasing the air bubbles out of the water jacket on the top of the cylinder block. But everything looks good. It still smells like gasket material, so that heater or the head gasket is still curing itself into the resins that are in there, the sticky resins. They're still cooking, so it's only got 52 miles. So I have not started it and run it up, and on those 52 miles, we did not rev it up really high. Just normal driving, because I didn't want to risk blowing that gasket right away until it cures. So yeah, we'll keep doing that for a while, but the oil has changed. It's got brand new oil after only 52 miles. So 2 oil changes. One was 650, then 52. She's good to go. New oil filter. Everything looked great. No coolant in the oil. No oil in the coolant. Those are pluses with the new head gasket. So I'm ecstatic. So be safe out there, YouTube. I think this one's a wrap. But then again, I thought Previa Mayhem 3 was a wrap. So we'll see where this one ends up. Stay tuned if you like what's going on. Jump down there and subscribe to the channel at Jamie Cars. I do appreciate it, and there's more to come. YouTube, I'm not paid for this one at all. Jump over to Legit Street Cars. Check out Alex's YouTube channel. It's great. I learn a lot watching that thing every time. It's a lot of fun. These things were on there as a special a few weeks ago. I bought these. These things are great. Get some shop towels, shop wipes. They just pull out nice and easy. They get a little dry on the top. If you flip it upside down, that liquid works its way back in again. So these things are great for cleaning up hands. Clean up tools. I highly recommend them. Again, not paid, just love the product. Take care. YouTube, she's all put back together. No coolant leaks up front on the hoses. The coolant is back to normal. Didn't even have to add any extra than what I took out. Got the seat back in. Yeah, you can't see an engine anymore. It's underneath here, underneath there. It's all back together. 2 captain's chairs up front. 2 captain chairs in the middle. All the trims are back in. I got the seats in the back folded down. Seat 7 comfortably with a little bit of storage. We can put a roof box on it. Fits in the garage easy. This is the world's most impressive supercar. I love this thing. Hopefully it lasts a while. So 297,000 miles. My first ever head gasket, and so far no leaks, and the water pump is red Loctite back together, so hopefully it drives more than 52 miles before I see a leak. Alright YouTube, if you like what you're seeing, drop down there in the bottom, down there below, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next videos. Be safe.